I'd like to go ahead, I'm sure everybody's met, but introduce Ron Strickland to talk about his history with the Pacific Northwest Trail.
So wonderful to be here, to see so many people who are interested in my favorite subject. Anyway, thank you all for listening to my few words about the origin of the Pacific Northwest Trail. Let's switch back here a second. Let's see if this will go. You all know that the trail was made official by Congress in 2009. And I personally want to find out how much you all really know about the Pacific Northwest Trail. I'm sort of a gruff 73-year-old Yankee, and I am proposing to start off my talk not with a joke like people normally do, or some funny comments. I'm going to start with a pop quiz. It's always very entertaining. So I have a few questions for you all. The first one is, how many of you have read the 1973 Pacific Northwest Trail Guidebook? 1979. How many of you read that? Jon Knechtel, back there. Okay, all of you who have read it, please stand up. There's Yeti, there they all are. Mike Dawson, and please keep standing up. I'm going to have more and more people standing up as the pop quiz goes on. This is going to be fun. Maybe not fun for you, but fun for me. Okay. The 1979, by the way, see how it's a single-space, small font. It's 2 pages. This is what people in the 1970s used to hike the Pacific Northwest Trail. And we had hikers in the 1970s. Actually, the moral of my talk is the Pacific Northwest Trail did not begin in 2009. There's a tremendous history before that. And so what's happening now is sort of a frosting on the cake, you know. Okay, how many have read the 1988-page Pacific Northwest Trail Guidebook? Here it is. Back there, you all, Joan Melcher, Yeti, you're standing up. Excellent. 8 pages, 19... I can't remember. I'm about to do that. Here it is here. He's jumping the gun. Brad, Brad, you stand up. Here it is. This is the 1984 350-page Pacific Northwest Trail Guidebook. This is the first book-length one. The people who were hiking in the early 80s and until the next one after this is 2001. But anyway, anybody who used this, please stand up. In 2001, the Pacific Northwest Trail Association published a 400-page guidebook. Actually, why I'm doing this is I want you to see the evolution of what the Pacific Northwest Trail is. It goes from 2 pages, single-spaced, to 400 pages with very extensive maps. Look at these maps, done by our cartographer, Ted Hitzroth. It has a wonderful fold-out map of the whole thing. There might be some, and who has read the 2001 guide? There's Abby, there's Teresa, and you. Very good.
Finally got us.
There you go. 400 pages. Okay, now we're getting serious. 2016. You've all read this, I hope. 2016. Tim Youngbluth Where's Tim? There he is. Tim is a great hero of the trail.
I read most of it.
This is the newest one. What this is, the rest of you didn't stand up. What this is the Pacific Northwest Trail Association has, I won't say why, but they're not publishing the guidebook anymore. So Tim Youngluth, who was a retired colonel in the Air Force, wonderful man, has been keeping up with the changes in the trail every year, especially information gathered from the previous year's hikers. And this is, how many pages is this, like 350?
Yeah, pretty close. I think.
Pretty close. And none of you here have read this? Okay. Let's go on to the next one. The Pacific Northwest Trail 2016 data book. I don't actually have one of those myself. I'm hoping to buy one from Jim. Could you hold one up? Do you have one?
You know, I do not actually. It's the backpack companion to the big book, because the big one is way too. Oh, thank you.
Oh,
right here it is.
There it is. That's the first one I've ever seen. My hand is up. All right, now, not but least, the 2016 Pacific Northwest Trail Town Guide. I think you've all read that. All of you here? Okay. Here it is. That's by Melanie Zimmerman, our author, is here. Raise your hand, Melanie. There she is. All right. I'm going to give you all, we're still sitting down, another shot at this. It's getting serious. It's getting serious. 1984, you've had plenty of chance to read this. Someone was talking a little while ago about the history along the trail. Who was that? Wendy. The Pacific Northwest Trail is unique among the 11 national scenic trails that we have a tremendous interest in the history along the way. We have several books about that. It's part of the deepness of our project. River pigs and cayuses. Many of the old-timers along the trail are in this book. In fact, on the back here, here's a picture of Ralph Thayer, who our thru-hikers in 1977 found sitting outside his cabin at the North Fork of the Flathead River. And he had built that cabin himself when he came into the country in 1905. An oil prospecting expedition before Glacier National Park existed. So his chapter is in this book. And here's a picture of the young Ron Strickland looking like a bear. He used to have hair. And here he is interviewing Ralph Thayer, who located, discovered and chose, located all of those trails west of the main line trail along the North Fork. I see none of you have read this. Oh, you have read it.
Good book. Great read.
Thank you. There's another one in that series which you should read too, which is called Whistlepunks and Gooey Ducks. Oh, I see we're missing, I want to hold up, John, did you bring grizzly bears and razor clams?
No, I forgot that. You forgot that. Like Townsend.
Yeah. Did anybody read?
Does that count?
What?
Razor clams, does that count?
Fran is.
I read it.
Telling a joke. Grizzly bears and razor clams, Chris Townsend. And the reason I particularly want to mention that is that the Pacific Northwest Trail has a following not only in the United States, but in other countries, in other continents. Chris Townsend, I'm going to talk about him later, is from Scotland. He came, hiked the whole Pacific Northwest Trail, and in 2012 published Grizzly Bears and Razor Clams. Okay, one more thing. This is one last shot for you. You see the people, look at this. America's Great Hiking Trails. Teresa's right there. Very good. This is Karen Berger and Bart Smith. This is the encyclopedia of the 11 National Scenic Trails. If you haven't read this, you've got to read it. In fact, you've got to read all these things. This is the basic literature of our subject. I'd even like to say this is their assigned reading. What do you say? All right. Let me continue with our talk here. Let me jump ahead to what the essence of the Pacific Northwest Trail is. And if I do say so myself, I'm the expert on that subject, because I thought it up in 1970. I'll tell you more about that later. But the first time this came to the attention of the public was in 1974. And I had spent the previous 4 summers exploring routes for this new idea I had. You see, because in the 1960s, I was very enthusiastic about trails. In 1962, I remember blazing a blue blaze trail at Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Maybe you all don't know, but in the Appalachian Trail, the side trails are blue blaze trail, whereas the AT is a white trail. So I remember doing that in 1962. In 1964, I went to the first Appalachian Trail conference at Stratton Mountain in Maine. So I was really into it as a kid. And by 1970, I had, the previous summer, been hiking in Yorkshire on a new trail called the Cleveland Way that local people had invented. And you know how young people are. I got to be in my bonnet as well. I had hiked a lot of the Cascade Crest Trail in Washington earlier too. So I had the idea, why don't I go east to west, so I'd see more of a variety. So in 1970 I started hiking east to west, 71, 72, 73. In 1974 I decided that I would introduce this idea to the public, and I published an article in Backpacker magazine. And here it is. And this is the essence of it right here. And Jeff Kish read from this a little while ago. And you can see it for yourself, so I won't read it myself. And as you can see in this, our 2001 guidebook that I held up here a minute ago, there's a quote from that, and you can see this same quote, the same philosophy, where the spell of wilderness can most flourish. Where the spell of wildness can most flourish. This is the essence of the Pacific Northwest Trail. Has been since the beginning, is still, and Chris Townsend, that I mentioned before, with the grizzly bears and razor paths, here's a quote from his book, 2014. I love the idea of again spending weeks in the mountains and forests, traveling on foot through the natural world. He came from Scotland to do this, as so many others have from Germany and other places. In fact, in Germany, this project is very important. I speak to Germans all the time who are very excited about this. Chris Townsend, by the way, is the world's most well-known hiker. Have any of you heard of Chris Townsend? You have. Some of you have. He is so well known that he's written 30 books about hiking, guidebooks, 30 books. The most well-known American hiker, you'll recognize this name, I hope, Andrew Skurka. Here he is. He wrote me yesterday, so that I'd be sure to put his comments before you all today. Remote, rugged, and gorgeous. Andrew Skurka also has the aspect that the Pacific Northwest Trail is only part of the transcontinental trail called sea-to-sea route that I started pushing exactly 20 years ago. There was an article in Backpacker magazine about me in 2003. Andrew Skurka was then a senior at Duke University. He read this article, or actually he read half of it. He said later that halfway through the article, he said to himself, I'm going to do that. 7,700 miles. Harry was a senior at Duke University, and he started planning. It took him at least half a year of planning. And he is a genius at planning, believe me. He set out, he hiked 11 months straight through from the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, where my sea-to-sea route begins. Do you all know what the sea-to-sea route is? Some of you do. It starts at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, goes on the International Appalachian Trail, comes down to Mount Katahdin, Main Appalachian Trail. In Vermont, there's a new section that's only being developed now across Vermont to connect to the North Country National Scenic Trail all the way to western North Dakota. Then there's a big gap of about 700 miles. And then the Continental Divide Trail north to Glacier National Park, and then Pacific Northwest Trail all the way to the ocean. Andrew Skurka did that in 11 months straight through winter. He was named Person of the Year by Backpacker magazine the year after that. I was a member of the Explorers Club then, and I arranged for him to address the annual meeting of the Explorers Club at the Waldorf Astoria Ballroom in March 2006. And imagine that Andrew Skurka, because he's hiked the sea-to-sea route and the Pacific Northwest Trail, he's standing up there in the dais with 1,000 members of the Explorers Club, and he's making the keynote speech along with Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut, and the moonwalk Buzz Aldrin, and a Russian cosmonaut woman. This was amazing. He later circumnavigated Alaska on foot and received a big award from the National Geographic Society. I'm telling you all this because Andrew Skurka strongly believes in our trail. He believes in the wilderness aspect of our trail. And as he says here, it's mystifying to him why anyone would ever want to change the wilderness aspect of it. Now here's a list of the legislative history of the Pacific Northwest Trail. As you know, the National Trail System Act passed in 1968. In fact, 2 years from now will be the 50th anniversary. What's interesting about this particular list, note what happens next in this history. This is the history of the way we're trained. 8 years later, Pacific Northwest Trail is trying to build Basin. Now, why would that be? How could that possibly be? Pacific Northwest Trail, who knew about it in the early 1970s? Well, how could that possibly be? This is because in 1970, as I told you, I started exploring it. In 1974, I got some congressmen and senators to introduce the study bill, especially the congressman from Seattle, who later became lieutenant governor. 2 years later, that whole bill passed. So in 1976, we were going gangbusters. We had literally 40 years ago now, in 1976, I formed our Pacific Northwest Trail Association. We had the bill passed. The next summer we had our first through hikers. We had two groups of Oregonians who were the first to go from the Continental Divide to the ocean. Things were looking great, especially since I know from other trails all around the country, every year, in fact, some new people are thinking up long-distance trails, and these almost never get anywhere. You know, to create a national scenic trail is almost impossible. That's why there are only 11 today, after almost 50 years. So I thought things were going great. But, as things often do, things went awry. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that there's no history except for biography. So I'm going to beg your indulgence to tell a little bit about myself, since I am the founder. I guess I can pull rank on you. So what was I doing during this period? My goal in the 60s and into the early 70s was to join the diplomatic corps. And I was at Georgetown University. I had to put on my School of Foreign Service hat. There it is. And the picture on the left is me in northern Cameroon talking to a local farmer. This is just the area where Boko Haram has been massacring people lately. Unfortunately, not when I was there. But at the same time I was so interested in foreign service, I was more and more attracted to these trails. And more distracted from that. This picture on the right is me on the campus of Georgetown University at the first Earth Day in April 1970. Notice my Arabic textbook there. It's looking a little dog-eared, but not as much as it should have been, because I was always playing hooky hiking. Anyway, 1970, I decided to go out and start exploring for what this Pacific Northwest Trail would be. And where to start? Imagine if you had thought this idea of yourself and you wanted to do it, where would you go? That's quite a puzzle. So this is where it is. This is Horseshoe Basin in the extreme eastern Pacific, you know, up about 30 miles from Oroville, the town in the center of the loop. Now right there is the Horseshoe Creek. So a buddy of mine from Seattle, Zev Siegel, drove me out from Seattle. It was sunny down in Oroville, but by the time I got up here, it was hailing, it got colder and colder, and I set out walking to get there. Well, Zev Siegel, by the way, I should point this out. 1970 was a period of tremendous ferment. I can see some gray-haired people here who remember the time. But it was amazing. This Zev Siegel is an example. Zev Siegel, the year after he drove me out to start this trail project, he and two buddies opened a little coffee shop in the Pike Place Market in Seattle. This later became Starbucks. Starbucks started from a bunch of pretty crazy guys, very equivalent to me, my buddies. I woke up that morning at this creek. I had set up my little tarp. Of course, in those days it wasn't like now. People didn't go in big bunches of people. You could just go by yourself carrying really heavy stuff. My pack must have been about 70 pounds. I was as tall and skinny then as I am now, but stronger, thank goodness. And I had a hard time setting up because my hands were so cold. And this was kind of miserable tarp. I had to string from trees. And I wasn't very good at it, to tell the truth. So in the morning I wake up and this bright sun, there's ice everywhere. Then all of a sudden I hear a bunch of horses approaching. And pretty soon they're in the creek and drinking. And so I stagger out of my tarp and looking up, and this frightens the horses. Pretty soon they're bucking and neighing, and saddles are creaking, and one of the riders is bucked off and lands in the water. He starts swearing. So actually I made a bad impression on the local people right from the start. They didn't hold it against me. That was the start. In 1972, I was back again in Bonner's Ferry. And that's me up there. Oops, it's not moving. There I am. Remember how I look so nice in coat and tie for Earth Day? Here I've become already what we call nowadays hiker trash. Seriously, like hiker trash. And look what we have over here. Here's the lion's head. Right from the beginning, as soon as I went there, I realized that the Purcells and the Selkirk Mountains would be the jewel of the Pacific Northwest Trail. This part where you come across the Purcell, down into the Kootenai Trench, across those wheat fields, by the old ferry. Up here, Parker Peak, Ball Lakes, etc. This was the heart of the whole business. Independence Day 1977, our first through hikers came through. And guess what? They met with local people in Ferry. This man on the left is the high school English teacher, Bob Detail. And here's the owner of the bookstore in town. And Bob and other local people, including the shop teacher at the school, they went to the lumber yard and they got a donation of a big slab of wonderful cedar, and they made two of these signs. This is the first Pacific Northwest Trail sign ever, Independence Day, 1977. And they're the two through hikers, Janet Garner and Rex Bateman. They would have come today, but they have two elderly mothers they're taking care of. They wish me to say hello to you and wish they could be here. But notice the ambition of this sign. The directions were a little sparse. Continental divide that way, Pacific Ocean this way. Well, it wasn't too long after that we had that two-page guidebook I held up a little while ago. We were going gangbusters then as far as I was concerned. Here's the cover of Backpacker magazine with the same Janet mix. Check out that type of equipment they got. We used to carry this real heavy stuff. They must have 60 pounds each. And there were little people too. Look at that tree, how big that is. That's Big Beaver Creek in the Northwest States. And there I am, that's the picture I was telling you about with Ralph Thayer. How many of you have been to the Polbridge Mercantile in Polbridge in the North Fork of the Atlantic? A lot of you, good. Did you happen to notice the beams inside? The beams have open beams in the ceiling. If you look carefully, you'll see the marks of Ralph Thayer's broad axe, because he hewed those beams himself with his broad axe. Same with his logs in his cabin. And if you read Reveries and Cayuses, he tells all about it. We were continuing to get really good publicity at that time. Here's an article by Janet in this was a front page article in the Seattle Times. The main article for hikers in those days in Washington State was signpost. There I am on the cover. I thought things were going great, but guess what? We ran into a buzzful of opposition. This was a very low moment for all of us. And of course, since I'm the founder, for me particularly, this was very low. And that study that we got a bill through Congress to have it was a joint study team, the Park Service and Forest Service. It recommended against adding the Pacific Northwest Trail to the National Trail System. And it adopted all of the arguments that the Seattle Mountaineers had posed against the trail. The main argument, basically, was that the Pacific Northwest Trail would take money from the other existing trails. Also, would have a bad effect on the environment, according to them. And worst of all, that it would be very expensive. They said in 1979 it would cost $100 million. You can see this report online. It's very easy to find. I read it the other day and brought back very unpleasant memories, but I was astonished how stupid it was. I'd forgotten that part. I'm glad it is out of my mind, I guess. So in 1980 and 1981, the Pacific Northwest Trail looked like it was dead. Or at least people in general thought it was. I personally was sort of counted off as dead. But my personal motto is hustle around, figure out something, don't give up, make it work. Hustle, make it work. Somebody was talking earlier today about how to get this going. What can we do? Get some diversity, get these other things. Well, that's what we've got to do. We've got to hustle, make it work. So, we had to do something new. And this is what it was. How many of you were in the Scouts? Any Scouters here? There you go. You know, Scouts like patches. And this is the rarest patch in the entire Pacific Northwest Trail. This is the 1983 St. George Trail patch. This is the normal one we used to have, but this was rare. And what is that? In Seattle, there's a long time thing called Catholic Scouting, Roman Catholic troops of Scouts. And they have something called the St. George Trail. And the president of our group at that time was this man, Larry Reed, who was an engineer for the Port of Seattle. He would work crazy hours at the Port of Seattle, and all the rest of his time he would devote to Pacific Northwest Trail. And he told me that he was great friends with the head scout at the Camp Shepherd Boy Scout camp at Mount Rainier. And Camp Shepherd has something called the High Adventure Program, in which they would train scouts to go up and do mountain rescue and rappelling and glacier work on high on Mount Rainier. And he said, if you go and see Max Eckenberg, he'll fix you up. There he is. So I went down in November '82 to Camp Shepherd, and there were a lot of scouts going around. And Max's wife had 200 cats and smelled like crazy cat pee. There he was. He was an old engineer at Boeing during World War II. As he liked to say, even though he didn't have a college degree, they needed men so badly that they let him design, as he put it, the crapper in the B-17. According to the story, sometimes it wasn't bolted down to the floor of the plane very well and it would tip over. You imagine how that would have been, but that was Max. The reason I'm telling you that, see what he's got here? He still had his old drafting table from Boeing. He would take the 15-minute topographic maps, and this is Blanchard Hill. You all know where Blanchard Hill is, or just on Sandwich Bay there, Chuckanut Drive, something like that. He would take this 15-minute ones, and he would laboriously by hand blow them up. Well, we had a new approach, all right. We knew that our opponents in the Seattle Mountaineers wouldn't be going out in the countryside. They'd be staying in the University District. So we would go out there south of Bellingham. And we got permission from the DNR to make a scratch trail. I was talking with just a little while ago, who said that there was like a mile-long bunch of cars parked there recently. We built a brand new trail there, in other words. The DNR had 2 little fingers of land that went down to Chuckanut Drive. So we developed a new trail down to Chuckanut Drive. That was 1982, 83, 84, even in 87. And nowadays, if you go there, it's just packed with cars. It was just Well, it looked like that in back there. That was basically a wilderness. It was actually second growth, 100-foot tall bud first. Our philosophy was, our opponents said that whole project would cost $100 million. We decided we'd build it for free. And this is the kind of chutzpah we had. And that's Max again with maps. And pretty soon this was getting good publicity. And Jon Knechtel, this is Jon Knechtel right there, she did yeoman work for this. She wrote this article. And that's Pat Cummins, who took a big boulder. And this is the second famous Pacific Northwest Trail sign. This one has a little bit better directions, but not too much better. And that was, if you go there, go to the Oyster Bar restaurant and the trailhead is right there. So, we still had this federal opposition. We had federal opposition for 30 years, from 1979 to 2009. We had a very difficult time overcoming that. But we kept struggling away. Look what we did here. We had Washington State Legislature, unanimous resolution. We had Idaho Trails Council, very good, 1994. Backcountry Horsemen, Continental Divide Trail Society, Pacific Crest Trail Association, Selkirk Basin Association, 1996. In other words, we were hustling, trying to make it work. And I had to have a little article in National Geographic magazine in which I encouraged people to come and help with this project. Somebody who was a lieutenant in the British Army, the Signals Corps camp in Britain, read this and mistook it. He thought it was Pacific Crest Trail. And the Pacific Crest Trail was putting out a call for volunteers. And the British Army likes to send their men overseas for practical training and team building, this kind of thing. So this Lieutenant Norton wrote to me, and he said, what can I do to help you with the Crest Trail? I don't know what kind of answer my devious mind would cook up for that. Pretty soon I had him and a whole platoon of guys from the British Army building this trail. If you go to the as I told you, that trailhead now. Just recently, there was a mile-long spread of cars along Chuckman Drive. The police were ticketing and towing. It was crazy because there's almost no place to park. But these were the kind of things we were doing to make it work. I have somebody you all know. In the, from say 13 years ago until just recently, this fellow, Jon Knechtel, was the spark plug of all of our activities, especially with the youth program. This youth program, the SKY program, which Jon Knechtel knows well and others here, this program was so successful that other trail groups all around the country wanted to take Jon away from us. Fortunately, he never went, and also to copy our program. I have a picture somewhere, but I couldn't find it for this show, of one of our graduates, a young fellow named Sam, who has the Pacific Northwest Trail logo on his arm. It's a tattoo. For the rest of his life, he will be tattooed with the Pacific Northwest Trail. He's my favorite graduate. And grants. Jon Knechtel was a master of writing grants. My wife is a master of writing grants, but I don't think she's actually as good as Jon Knechtel. Also, he used to contribute a lot of his own money. And you know what we need in our board of directors is people who will contribute their own money, raise money, contribute money. Also look at their legislation. The Pacific Northwest Trail Bill passed in March 2009, largely because of Jon Knechtel. And you know what he did? This is what he had to do, hustle. make it work. He would go to county commissioners. He'd go to local nonprofits. He'd go all around the House and Senate on the Capitol Hill. I've done that a lot myself. This is hard work. And, as you know, in March 2009, he passed. Norm Dix was our great champion. Norm Dix is Tacoma, since retired. Mary Cantwell, of course, in the Senate. I put this up here because the Pacific Northwest Trail was political from the very beginning. From 1974, when I got Congressman Joel Pritchard to introduce our bill. It was political all the way through. I told you before that northern Idaho was my favorite part. And in 1987, I got Idaho's ultra-conservative Senator Steve Sims to introduce my bill. Steve Sims, you can imagine that. He never got anywhere, but I was always hustling, trying to make it work. And the politicians, I think, like our message, because you know what our message is? It's as I told Senator Sims, it's kind of a motherhood and apple pie. You know, it's not people outside having fun, all kind of diverse people, more so kids. I told Senator Sims, you know who likes to go out on our trail is Marines. Marines, veterans like to go, Boy Scouts. I would have told him that, I would have told him anything actually. He believed it, and I actually believed it. The topic of my talk is the Pacific Northwest Trail in the next 50 years. Why 50 years? Because by the time this management plan is actually in practice, the Pacific Northwest Trail idea will be 50 years old. So what about the next 50 years? And this is what I recommend. Maintain our wilderness focus. This is the heart of what we do. Double down on volunteerism. From the beginning, it was very dependent on volunteers. It was only fairly recently that we had paid people along. Coordinate with other national scenic trails. I'm delighted that Teresa is here from Continental Divide and Mike from Pacific Crest Trail, because you know what we're doing is within the context of the other 10 national scenic trails, and there's tremendous things we can learn from the partnership with the national trails, and also integrate the community with our trail. So let's start with one of those. I am going to refrain from asking you all what this is, because it's actually hints. But if you're very savvy, you'll see that somebody has put the letters PCT over here, a little arrow. And over here, you see there's another way here. If you were coming along from the south here, you would have a choice. Go this way. Pacific Northwest Trails over here. This is Castle Pass, the North Cascades. I was there September 2014, and I heard about this, that the Forest Service had prevented us from having any symbols of the two national trails there. We need to do something about stuff like that. Because, you know, the Wilderness Act, and, you know, when I was doing graduate school, after I gave up on Arabic, I was doing a dissertation about the National Wilderness System and how new wildernesses are added to the national system. I became the great expert on that. And when I was doing it, I had to brainstorm, well, maybe I can add a new trail to the trail system, my own invention. That's how this happened. So the National Wilderness Act specifically allows trails and wilderness. Read it yourself. And so there should be no reason why we couldn't have proper Pacific Northwest Trail signs along a route, especially where two trails cross. All right, volunteers. This fellow here, the way I used to get volunteers is we had this brochure, and there was an article in Backpacker magazine a few years ago that described me as a pulpit pounding evangelist. And everybody I would see, I would hand out our brochure. I was like certain religious groups would come to your door. I was like that brochure. And this fellow on the right here, he got one of those. And he foolishly volunteered. This was in autumn 1982. He's still volunteering to this day. This is Ted Hisroff, who did all the maps and all of our things. This other person was Pat Cummins, who was a forestry instructor at Green River Community College. And he would be out there with his chainsaws and doing all kinds of damage to the environment. This other person here is a very developmentally challenged child in Meadow Bloom. There's a whole chapter about her in my memoir. And here's Ted again working on his maps. This is a fellow named Luke Jordan, who hiked the entire North Country National Scenic Trail a few years ago from western North Dakota all the way to the Vermont border. The North Country Trail ends at Lake Champlain. My project for a long time has been to extend it across Vermont to the long trail of the Appalachian Trail. So he hikes my route to Main Junction, where, if you know the Appalachian Trail, if you're going south on the AT, near Rutland, Vermont, the trail splits. The AT goes to the right there, and the long trail goes north to Quebec to the left. So I actually worked quite a bit with the North Country Trail people. Let's see where it's at. Oh, here it is. And I wrote the guidebook for the North Country Trail, and got them to agree to extend the North Country Trail west to the Continental Divide Trail and east to the Appalachian Trail. Now, one thing that's important for us is to realize that the broader hiker community is a tremendous resource for the Pacific Northwest Trail. These are some people I met on the trail north of Holman Pass in September 2014. Look at the smiles on these people's faces. Especially this one. These people are having the time of their lives. And this is the feeling overall of the hiking community, I would say. Abby, would you agree with that? Beth, would you agree with that? No matter what happens in this committee, these people will be out there hiking the Pacific Northwest Trail. They'll be following Tim Young Routes Digest every year. They'll be picking their own routes. They will be making history themselves. But we need to help them, to learn from them, and the Pacific Northwest Trail is like a business. We here are business managers and owners, you might say. You're the owners. But those people are the customers. You must please the customers in any business and know what they like. And why these people come is very clear to me. It's because they want to see this. They want that. They want the camaraderie of being out there together. And they want to feel a sense of adventure. Often their lives, as my personal life was, were kind of boring. They want a thrill of something bigger than themselves. This picture represents that. Imagine you're standing right there, how do you feel? Well, we're coming to the end of my talk, but I want to leave you with my gut feeling about this period right now. I happen to believe that now is the best of times for road travel. This was me in 1972. 1972, can you mention how far back that was? Most of you weren't born yet. 1972. There I am in a high pasture abandoned barn, lying on the last cutting of hay. This is on Stone Mountain, east of Northport. Very confusing area. There I am with a map, trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. And I had all these ideas in my head. And now we have a congressional mandated route. We have a non-profit group, Pacific Northwest Trail Association from 1976. It's a little weak condition now, but I'm hopeful. We have through hikers. Every year we have more and more through hikers. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 100 this year. And don't forget that the through hikers are just like the iceberg. Most of the iceberg is under the water. Most use on long distance trails is always by the day hikers and weekenders. So, us here who are through hikers, each one of us represents hundreds and hundreds, like a mean of other people. So that's why I think this is the best of times. And if you want to contact me about any of these ideas, here's my information. And I'm going to answer a few questions if you wish.
Actually, unfortunately, we have to move to the public comment period, but I know you're going to be around. And so, because we do have a bunch of comments to get through and want to make sure that folks have submitted comments in time. So,
Okay. Thank you all very much.